Good afternoon. We're outside. It's beautiful weather. We're in the big black Brainmobile, caffeinated by black coffee, here to talk about a stellar book, a great book, Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I'm going to give you guys my 2 cents on this excellent science fiction book. So, Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I had read a book by Dan Simmons. I have read a book by Dan Simmons before I read The Song of Kali. It was decent. I wouldn't say it was an excellent book, but it was decent. It was a book that concerned basically the city of Calcutta, and it painted that city in India as a very hellish city. And it was a horror, very soft fantasy, urban fantasy novel. Short, perhaps have been a bit shorter. There wasn't too much of a plot, but it was a decent read. But Hyperion is the book, the series, I should say, that Dan Simmons is really known for. Now, these are a series of 4 books. This is the first book. Hyperion is then paired with Fall of Hyperion, and after that there's Endymion and the Rise of Endymion. Now, I don't know too much about Endymion, or the Rise of Endymion, or even the Fall of Hyperion, but I know that the Fall of Hyperion is going to proceed this novel. So what's Hyperion about? You can see right here, odd looking place, odd looking planet, freaky looking entity right here. This freaky looking entity is the mascot pretty much of this cantos. That's the Shrike. Now, the Shrike is an entity that inhabits Hyperion. Now, to go back, Hyperion is a planet. This planet, actually, this is a scene from the book. Hyperion is a planet in the future. At least that's how this novel is painted as. This is 800 years in the future. A lot has changed. And in this novel, there are 7 pilgrims that are making the journey to Hyperion. But not just Hyperion, they're going to the Time Tombs. And the Time Tombs is the area in which the Shrike dwells around, lurks around, although he's often spotted in many other areas. Okay, I haven't really said too much. It's still a bit confusing, right? Even after reading this, it's a bit confusing, because this is very much science fiction, horror, mystery. It's a mystery novel. Because when it starts, you're not exactly sure why these 7 pilgrims are going on this journey. It seems like they are essentially forced by the government. They're mandated by their governments to go on this pilgrimage. At least that's how it seemed to me for the first character that were introduced, the consul. Now, the consul, who is a diplomat, pretty much gets a call, gets a sort of futuristic hologram call from essentially the governor of this whole, what's called the hegemony. And the hegemony is a collection of pretty much human entities. After humans have colonized a good portion of the galaxy, they're under the rulership of this government that's called the hegemony. Okay, it's pretty far out, eh? And the consul has to go on this journey to Hyperion. Now, these 7 pilgrims all have a sort of connection to Hyperion. And they themselves are wondering, why are we going on this journey? Well, in order to better know why we're going on this journey, why don't we each tell stories about our lives and what led us to this point in life? And it's quickly revealed that each of these pilgrims has a connection to Hyperion in some way. Hyperion or the Shrike. And as the novel progresses, bulk of the novel, 80% of the novel, are the stories that are told. The other 20% interspersed between these stories is the actual, what we can call the linear progression of the novel. Them moving, them going through the pilgrimage, them approaching. They don't exactly enter into the time tombs at the end, but them approaching the time tombs. And things happen in that linear progression, not to spoil it, but things are revealed through the stories that sort of reflect on the linear progression. At least that's what I believe is happening. It's not completely, not everything is really revealed. It remains very much a mystery, this novel, which is why you gotta read Fall of Hyperion. And I plan to do that. But this is a génial, bien fait, super cool, really cool book. Now, as I described the structure of the book, it's very reminiscent of Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, which is a 14th century, pretty long English poem that recounts these travelers who are each telling stories in order to get a free meal by this from this nosy innkeeper. I've read portions of the Canterbury Tales. This is not as funny as the Canterbury Tales. You can get quite a lot of chuckles out of the Canterbury Tales. There are some funny bits, but it's much more somber, especially towards the end. And there's a real horror and mystery aspect that veils this novel. The horror aspect comes in a few different forms. One of them concerns the Shrike, this freaky guy, who is a 7-foot tall, sharp, robotic looking supernatural entity that can teleport, and it's got blades all over. To me, it seems like a robot, a sort of AI creature. And AI and artificial intelligence play a prominent role in this story. The hegemony, this collection, this government, is in a very uneasy relationship with the AI. With AI that has kind of gone, in a way, its own way, but at the same time, this AI technocore it's mysterious what the AI is exactly trying to accomplish. And another thing that is happening in this novel is that there is a war, intergalactical war that is about to happen between the ousters, who are essentially humans that have sort of gone really far off the grid. They're painted as barbarians. They have exited what's known as the web. And these barbarians are about to engage in a war, and it seems like this war is concerning the planet Hyperion. Now, this is super vague, a lot of rambling, I get it. But Hyperion itself is a tough novel to talk about without spoiling too much, without going a bit piece by piece. Just know that it's beautifully well told. some of these worlds that Simmons describes are so vivid and so rich. Another thing I really liked about this novel, and I'm not big for science fiction, is that the elements of science fiction are they're not far removed, so far removed that it seems fantastical and it doesn't make sense. They seem quite plausible, and there are tons of references and allusions to stuff that has happened on Earth, or what this novel terms as old Earth. So the Earth that we're living on, that I'm transmitting from, that this car here is on, would be called old Earth in Hyperion, because something bad happened to old Earth. Spoiler alert, 800 years have passed. Bad things happened around here. But many of the issues that continue to plague Earth, natural resources, certain wars over certain territories that still concern us humans now on Earth, are mentioned in Hyperion. And it gives the book much more of a sense of grounding and believability as far as the science fiction aspect goes. Because I feel much more tethered to this sense that this is plausible. And a lot of the technology, you can see some analogs in reality, what we are going through. There's something called a Hawking mat, for example, which is essentially a transportation device, a mat, and it really is a flying carpet, pretty much. It's a very fancy, high-tech flying carpet. And Simmons makes note of that. He doesn't just say it's a Hawking mat, blah, 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 but he mentions that this was a technology that was sort of conjured up as far as artistically in the minds of old Earth people in the flying carpet. Tons of literary references, a good amount of philosophical, sociological references. John Muir plays a big role in here, the conservationist, the American conservationist. Shakespeare is mentioned and quoted a good amount of times. And the big one is John Keats. John Keats, whose Hyperion, actually the planet was actually named after his poem. Now, what was John Keats' poem Hyperion about? Now, John Keats was a English romantic poet who died very young of tuberculosis. It is important to know John Keats, a bit about John Keats for this story. Now, he died when he was 25 of tuberculosis. And his poem Hyperion is about, I have not read it, but after a quick Wikipedia, it's about the old gods. The old god Hyperion. I can't remember if Hyperion is a sun god or something like that, but essentially a titan. And there is an era in Greek mythology where the Titans ruled the world, and they were eventually overthrown by the Olympians. The Olympians being Zeus, Hades, Athena, all those people. Now, Kronos was the ruler of these Titans, and Hyperion was from what I understand, the last Titan standing. The last god that had to essentially give way to another god. And that is important. That context is important when reading this novel, because giving way to another generation, whether it be faith or just a new kind of species and civilization, is a continuous theme in Hyperion. the first story concerns a priest. He is a Catholic priest. And it's a horrifying story in many ways. It's kind of a spooky one. But he's a Catholic priest, and Catholicism has been regulated to, well, it's been diminished into a sort of cult religion, a very fringe religion. Not a lot of people practice Catholicism. It's looked at as, it's very rare. There aren't many Catholics. And this priest is very adamant, these priests that are actually recounted in this story are very adamant on trying to revive Catholicism and give proof for this religion in this world. And without going too much into it, the story takes interesting turns in that regard, into how it relates to the planet Hyperion. Time is also a significant theme. Another thing that's happening in Hyperion, on this planet, the book, is the time tombs are being opened. And the time tombs are these reverse or anti-entropic fields. So essentially, instead of releasing entropy and chaos into the world, like essentially we are all doing now, instead of time progressing this way, time is sort of going backwards around these time tombs. And it seems like there is something that happened in the future, in the distant future, that is reversing back into time in these time tombs. And these time tombs have only been released and have been releasing this anti-entropic energy only recently, which is another reason why, which is sort of painted as another reason as to why these pilgrims are going there. But more becomes revealed in the story as to really why they are going there. But at the same time, a mystery still remains as to what the Shrike really wants, why this scary looking creature is there, and why the characters do give reasons as to why they're wanting to go to this pilgrimage, why they're engaging in this pilgrimage. But there are greater forces, as I mentioned, such as the AI, the ousters, and the hegemony, that all seem to have a big stake into this planet Hyperion. And the pilgrims seem to be, at least upon reading this novel, pawns for some of these forces. Now, excelente alla dente novel, Hyperion. Highly recommend it, even if you're not big into sci-fi. Now, it might take a while to get used to it. There's a lot of stuff that's thrown at you that Dan Simmons never really kind of walks you through everything and babies you through it, which I appreciate, because that would ruin the flow of this novel. But at the same time, it will come in fast at the start. Just give it time, and many things will slowly be explained and become known, and you'll know how this world works, how this world functions, essentially. Anyways, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Take care.